What is going on, everyone? Phil here for KO Gaming, and if you're anything like me, this past week you've probably been playing quite a lot of the new competitive first-person shooter from Blizzard Entertainment, Overwatch. Being the very first-person shooter from this AAA game development studio, people have been absolutely hype about it for months. It's finally here, and so I decided to actually sit down and take some time to record some of the best tips and advice that I can give to people who may be relatively new to the game, and maybe to people who are playing it but need a little bit of help trying to figure out how to play with certain characters, out of which I'd probably say 10 out of the 21 characters in the cast I've had a decent amount of time to play with, and I think I've learned enough that I could lend you a little bit of knowledge and experience. So without further ado, here we go with my tips for Overwatch. First off, the biggest, most major piece of advice that I can give to anyone jumping into Overwatch from the get-go is to understand this is not Call of Duty or Halo. This is not at its core a run-and-gun first-person shooter where you're going to be running off and doing things solo and going all Rambo and gung-ho. This game is about teamwork. It's about synergy. In fact, on the character selection screen, when you're selecting your character, it'll actually give you little pop-up notices stating if your team currently needs more damage to be dealt or if it needs a more assault or healer, so that way you know how to actually balance your team as you're going into an online match. In Overwatch, if everyone runs off and does everything for themselves, you are going to lose. And that is what I think is one of the core attractions to the game, is that it's something different and refreshing. It's not your typical first-person shooter. Now, of course, what that goes hand in hand with is the fact that there are 4 different playable classes in Overwatch. There's a more assault-based class, which is about dealing damage. There's a more support-based class that could be a balance between dealing damage and doing other things for your team that could help in certain scenarios. There's a defensive class, characters who are more like tanks with high HP, even though they may have some other uses as well. And of course, the more healers, the 4 characters who can basically restore your HP and or buff your shields, or through other ways aid your team in ways other than just dealing damage. So that's a cool thing, and every single person who plays Overwatch is probably going to sink into one of these kind of sets. For me, I actually felt that in different situations, I felt like maybe this match I want to support my team, this match I really feel like just doing a lot of kills, and so it's cool that you have that variety. With 21 characters from the get-go, it might take you some time to fall into line with what you like, but over time I think you're probably going to find someone that you do. Since Overwatch is primarily about teamwork, you have to find a way to communicate with your team. Now, obviously, voice chat would be the easiest way to do that. Unfortunately, as we all know, there are some obnoxious people out there who love to play music and stuff in the background that's just incredibly disturbing when you're trying to play a match. So, thankfully, Blizzard put in radial commands which allow you to ask for common things such as healing or for people to follow you so that you know exactly what's going on in a match if there's no voice chat going on. Don't be afraid to use these commands in a situation where you think that something is needed. For example, if you are one of these tank-like characters and you're about to go in to try to distract the enemy, don't be afraid to call for healing so someone can heal you and you can basically tank against everyone while other people go on to a different objective. It all goes hand in hand and it works out pretty well. In addition, don't be afraid to support your fellow players. And what I mean by that is a lot of these first-person shooters, again, have been about just running off and getting kill streaks and having the best kill-death ratio. That is not what Overwatch is about. There's entire classes based around just simply getting your team from point A to point B, or healing your team, or buffing your team. Much like another strategy-based game that Blizzard has made, Warcraft, you're going to have to try to make your teammates as viable as possible in certain situations. So I understand that many people are just used to the, oh, I gotta go gung-ho, run and gun, kill death ratio kind of mindset, because that's what a lot of other games have done. Don't be afraid to delve into other classes and try other styles of gameplay, because overall it's refreshing and you're probably gonna like it. Let's get a little bit more specific and start talking about the individual classes. First, with the Assault class. If you've played other run-and-gun shooters a la Call of Duty, and you want something a little bit more familiar to you before you might jump into the more varied characters of Overwatch, Soldier 76 is going to be your best bet. He really is kind of like a classic-style military character, having an assault rifle that's good at even close and far range. He also has a little cluster missile, which you can fire from time to time to deal a big chunk of damage, and his ability to run at double speed speed of most other characters is great. He's very maneuverable and also has decent damage from any range. By far, his best ability is his ultimate, by which he can automatically lock on to anything in his field of vision and just fire away. You don't even have to be pointing at the characters, you will be hitting them no matter what, and this is great. It basically turns Soldier 76 into a one-man army that can take out multiple people at once. So again, an easy character to jump in and learn from the get-go. If you used to play Quake back in the day, then I think Pharah is going to be a character that's right up your alley. If you're not aware, the gameplay of Pharah seems to be based around the rocket jumping mechanics of games such as Quake 3 Arena and Unreal Tournament. Because she has a jetpack, at any time she can do this super jump that propels her into the air, kind of similar to how rocket jumps used to in previous arena-style shooters. Now she can hail rockets down from the sky for area of effect damage and actually affect groups of enemies at a time, which is really neat. In addition, she has an ability to knock enemies back, which is great if they're hoarding over an objective, or if they're near a ledge, you can blow them off for an instant kill, which is kinda neat. And then, of course, her ultimate, where she rains down missiles in a rapid pace. I strongly recommend every time you use Pharah's ultimate that you use her jetpack ability first, so that way you are hovering around a group of people and you can actually auto-target all around a certain area and move around your targeting rather than just shooting straight ahead, which is going to make you a lot more limited if you activate it on the ground. I really like Pharah as a character. I'm not great at maneuvering her around yet, but I definitely see the potential. Out of all the assault classes, I actually like Tracer the best. Now, she's the character you've seen all over the promotional artwork and the advertisements for Overwatch, and she really is refreshing because she's a totally new style of first-person shooter character based around maneuverability. She has 3 teleports stored at a time where she can jump around the screen to confuse enemies, and she actually can get right through roadblocks and other hindrances that would hold back a lot of other characters, including turrets and shields. So, one really great strategy with Tracer is to rush ahead of your team, and when the enemy is building their defenses, teleport through them to get behind them and then attack them. Now, her other ability is Rewind, which is incredibly unique. It allows her to rewind about 10 seconds of gameplay from where she presses the button to start, and not only does she move backwards in time completely invincible, but she also heals if she had more health but in that 10 seconds in the past. So for example, if you're rushing into the enemy, you teleport behind them and you start to attack them, then they realize it and they turn and start to shoot you, hit rewind and you will get all your health back and start out where you were from. So it's really cool. Her ultimate is a sticky bomb. Admittedly, I'm bad with it. My aim is terrible, but I get what you're supposed to do. Teleport in, toss the sticky bomb, then hit that rewind to get the hell out of there, because when it blows up, it's going to do area of effect damage to a lot of enemies, and you don't want to be caught in that blast radius. I love Tracer. I want to play a hell of a lot more with her because she's so unique, and I just love it. Now on to the support classes, and let's start with Bastion. Yeah, the mech that basically has been the bane of a lot of people's existence in Overwatch here in the early days, simply because not only does he have an assault rifle, not only does he have the ability to heal himself at any time, but he can turn into a turret that deals ridiculous amounts of damage. Now, he's really useful for certain kinds of matchups. For example, I found that in a payload matchup, when that payload is moving across the screen, if you could transform into the turret on top of the payload, and if your teammates actually support you with shields and healing, it could become almost unstoppable, leading to insanely high kill streaks. But I really think that Bastion's downfall are the more maneuverable characters like Tracer, who would be able to teleport behind him, and or someone like Mei who could freeze him in place and stop that turret action. So Bastion is really easy to use, deals tons of damage, and at first you're probably going to do a lot of successful killing with him until people find ways around him, but he's a pretty cool character. Now, I tried to play with Hanzo a bit, the archer character. However, I'm just not good enough with the aim so far on console in order to get those one-hit headshots that everyone seems to be getting. But the one tip I want to give for everyone is his ultimate. It's so incredibly good. It's a giant cluster of dragons that travels across the entire map and does ridiculous amounts of damage, even passing through walls. I've seen this ultimate completely turn matches around, so whenever you hear the roar and you see the dragons, if it's from the opposing team, get the hell out of the way. Now, one support character that's pretty unique is Mei. She relies solely on her capability to use ice to freeze opponents with her primary fire. Now, the problem that I have with Mei is that it doesn't really deal a lot of damage, and in order to kill an opponent, what you really need to do is freeze them with the primary fire, then change immediately to your alternate fire, which is a more focused icicle, almost like a sniping shot, and aim for the head. If you manage to freeze your opponent and then get a frozen headshot with the icicle, you could probably kill them. But the problem is, it only does a certain amount of damage, and there's a certain group of characters, in particular the defensive characters, they have too much health for this to kill them. So in that role, what Mei really needs to do instead is just focus on freezing those characters and disrupting whatever they were trying to do in the match, so that way the team gets a little bit disorganized. And I really feel that Mei, at her core, is meant to be more of a disruptive force than a destructive one. Her ultimate is really awesome. It's a huge area of effect freeze that comes out of a drone that she throws, and I've seen this actually turn matches completely around because you could have an enemy team on an objective, you toss this out, it completely freezes them all in place, and now your team can overtake them and completely flip the match on its head. So I like the character, I just wish that she could deal a little bit more damage so she'd be more viable against certain characters and matchups. Now, admittedly, the class I've played the least of is the defensive class, so really I'm only going to talk about a couple characters, starting with Reinhardt, the character who I used the most from that class. He's completely unique from everyone else because he's primarily focused on melee combat and doesn't even have a gun. Now, the good thing is, they gave him a crazy powerful shield, and one of his primary capabilities is to block your team and or block an objective as you're trying to defend it, or even move slowly across a map from point A to point B. This shield absorbs tons of damage, and if Reinhardt actually gets buffed by his team, he can become a disruptive dynamo, having so much health and shields that he can just rush in and slam things left and right. His other ability is a unique shoulder charge that will push enemies across the screen, slamming them against the wall if you do connect with one, stunning them, and then allowing you to do a follow-up hit or two, pretty much leading to an instant kill in most situations. Now, you have to be careful, because if you do not hit anyone, Reinhardt will continue to dash until he hits a wall, and if there's not a wall, he will dash right off of a cliff, leading to a suicide. So be very careful. His ultimate is nice as well. It's a small area of effect directly in front of him where he slams the ground and basically knocks any opponents in front of him down, stunning them for a few seconds. It's great if you're facing a group of opponents, or again if you're trying to take an objective that's already overrun with the enemy, but I've found more times than not it doesn't really lead to you being able to kill many people, because especially if you've got multiple people in front of you, it doesn't deal a lot of damage. So be careful. It's really more about disruption than anything else, and it doesn't really lead to too many kills in my experience. Now on to the support class, the class that's not about getting kills, but more about making sure that your team is alive and healthy at all times. The two characters that I've been playing the most with are Lucio and Symmetra, and they're completely different. Lucio has the ability at any time to buff his entire team as long as he's within a certain range. You can tell whether you're in range because you'll actually see the silhouettes of your teammates through the walls, and they'll have certain colors on them. Now, he can either give them a speed boost, which allows them to all move a little bit faster and fire a little faster, or he can give them a healing boost, which is awesome. It's basically auto regeneration of your health, and this is his primary use. Stay near your teammates, try to stay alive, try to keep them alive by healing them, and attacking anyone who may be attacking them. So if you're actually playing the game and you notice your opposing team has a Lucio on it, you may want to make him a primary target because he's the one who's healing and buffing everyone at all times. I really like the character, especially because he also has the ability to knock people back with an area of effect push that could push people off of ledges. His ultimate further buffs the entire team by giving them all a huge shield boost. So not only could he give you health and make you move faster, then he could give you a giant amount of shields at any time when that ultimate is charged, which makes you basically all tanks. He's a really awesome character, and in my opinion, he actually is the best support in the game. The other support character I've been playing a lot with is Symmetra. Now, let me tell you, a lot of people have come to me and said, Phil, we don't understand how to play Symmetra, and we've seen you try to play with her. what can you give us for tips, alright? It seems to me Symmetra is not meant to be a healer in any way, shape, or form. In fact, she doesn't have the ability to heal anyone. What she can do is give a very small shield boost to each character on your own team. It's not a huge one, and honestly, it's not that big of a deal. I think primarily she's used for two things. Number one, her turrets. She can place 3 turrets on anything. A wall, the floor, the ceiling. Hell, in the payload missions, you could even put it on the moving payload. And these turrets are great. They auto-target enemies as they run by. They don't necessarily stick out visually, so you may just accidentally not realize there's a turret there and then get fried. They're pretty useful. And one of the most useful things I've found for them is at the beginning of a match, especially if you're on the defense, run to the enemy spawn before they have a chance to come out of the spawn door, place 3 turrets around the door, so that way they can't see it on their way out. They'll run straight into 3 turrets, and for the first few seconds of the match, you're going to see 2, 3, 4 people die to these before they realize they're even there and have to turn around to take them out. While they're doing that, you can get some cheap kills, so basically you can disrupt the entire first minute of the game with her turrets, and it's really great. Her other really good ability is the teleporter. Her ultimate doesn't deal any damage, nor does it really buff your team. What it allows you to do is create a teleportation portal that you can place anywhere throughout the map. Now, one of the major gripes that I have with Overwatch is that when you die, you have to run from that original spawn point all the way across the map to where the action is. This portal negates that by allowing you to teleport wherever Symmetra puts it down. So your best bet is to build up your ultimate, run 1 or 2 rooms away from where the action is, put down this portal, and now everyone's going to be able to teleport quickly into the action after they die. It's a huge asset, and I've seen matches where we've literally only won the match because Symmetra is teleporting people right into the thick of things. It's really useful, but be careful where you put it, because if you put it out in the open, people will destroy it easily, and then you've wasted your ultimate. As for her weapon, well, the primary fire is a short lock-on beam. You have to be pretty close to your enemy, but it locks on. You don't even have to be aiming at them. You just have to hold down the button, and this constant stream of damage will be dealt. It's actually quite damaging, and I've found out with standoffs with characters such as the Reaper that I've actually beaten him head up if I locked on with the beam and started shooting him before he ever shot me, so it's really powerful. Her alternate fire is also great. You charge it with your left trigger, and when you release, it's a giant ball of energy that if fully charged can deal over 100 damage per blast. It could actually almost insta-kill certain characters. It's slow moving, it's deceptive. You may think that it's going to miss, and then boom, hit you right in the face. It's really good, and it's one of the things I've really liked using with Symmetra. I think she's a very unique character, a lot different than the other healer styles, and I think that you'll like her if you do put a little bit of time in. Well, that's about all that I've gotten for you right now. I've only played the game for a few sessions during the beta that happened early in May, and I've played it about 3 or 4 sessions this launch week. I do plan on playing more Overwatch in the future, especially when the new characters are released, and I will be also kind of giving my take on the new characters and DLC maps and such in the future. I hope that this video is enough to at least help you out, again, whether you're a beginner or someone who's jumping into Overwatch and trying to absorb as much as you can. And let me know in the comments if you found this video useful. If you did, I may make more tutorial and tip style videos like this in the future. Thanks a lot for watching, everyone. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please consider giving it a like here on YouTube. Also, be sure to check the video description, where I have several links, the first of which will actually lead you straight to my playlist of gameplay from launch week, so you can watch all of my raw matchups and see all the stuff that happened to me firsthand if you'd like. In addition, please check out the Amazon Associate link, as well as my Patreon link, which is patreon.com/DarksidePhil. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you later with more on KO Gaming.